So today, we're going deep inside the 9/11 Memorial Museum. But look, this isn't just about what happened on that day. What we're really digging into here is how the museum itself was designed. It's a powerful, emotional, and, a deeply intentional experience. And it's all meant to shape how we remember one of the most pivotal events in modern history.
Yeah, that phrase right there, a museum built inside a wound. Honestly, that single idea is the key to understanding everything we're about to talk about. See, we're not just looking at a collection of artifacts. We're exploring a space that was consciously built within the physical and psychological wound left at ground zero. So the big question we're going to keep asking is, what does that choice do to us, the visitor? Okay, so let's start our journey where every visitor does, right on the Memorial Plaza at the surface. Before you even think about going underground, the design is already telling you a story. And that story is all about loss and absence.
To really get the architecture here, you have to understand this one psychological concept. It's called repetition compulsion. A critic named Tomoaki Morikawa pointed this out, suggesting the whole project was guided by it. Basically, it's this psychological drive to repeat a trauma, to go back to it over and over again. And when you think about the memorial, with its obsessive focus on the exact footprints of the towers, wow, it's a perfect example of this in action, right?
And make no mistake, this was absolutely not an accident. One of the jury members, James E. Young, he explained that making the voids, that absence, the main feature, that was a totally deliberate choice. So that cascading water, it's not just a pretty fountain. It's meant to make you think of the collapse. The memorial doesn't try to cover up the wound, it literally carves it, permanently, right into the landscape.
All right, now we're going to follow that visitor's path 7 stories down. We're going right into the archaeological heart of the original World Trade Center site. And this whole experience is designed to be a descent, not just physically, but emotionally too. So the very first thing that hits you is just the scale of it all. These huge steel tridents, right? They're actual pieces of the Twin Towers facade, and they are enormous. They just immediately confront you with the sheer size of what was lost. You can't help but feel small standing next to them. And that's a core design principle at play here, using scale to make you feel the massive importance of the event. And that feeling of being dwarfed, it just continues as you move into Foundation Hall. I mean, you're down at bedrock here. You're looking at the original slurry wall that held back the entire Hudson River, and there's the famous last column. The architecture is intentionally vast, almost cavernous. It's all designed to make you fall silent, to create this feeling of quiet reverence. Okay, and this is where the museum's strategy really starts to click into place. As you're making your way down, you're walking right alongside the actual survivors' stairs. Now, think about that. This isn't just an artifact behind glass. It's almost like a piece of performance. The museum is literally placing you, the visitor, in the exact path of people who have fled for their lives. It's the beginning of this subtle, powerful reenactment of the day's events.
And once you're down there, the collection that awaits you is just immense. We're talking over 10,000 artifacts, more than 23,000 images, and almost 2,000 oral histories. It's just an absolutely incredible effort to document and curate the memory of a single day.
Okay, so now we're entering the real core of the museum, the historical exhibition. And this is where the whole vibe shifts. We're moving from quiet reflection to a totally immersive and honestly often overwhelming recreation of the attacks. The whole exhibit is built around this incredibly strict minute-by-minute timeline. It covers just those 102 minutes between the first plane hitting and the final tower collapsing. It's so precise that some critics have actually given it a name, chronomania. It's this obsession with when things happened. And their argument is, when you focus so intensely on the ticking clock, you might actually be distracting from the deeper, more complicated question of, why it happened.
So inside the exhibition, the museum keeps playing with that idea of scale. It's fascinating. On one hand, you have the mangled, monumental wreckage of a fire truck, a huge symbol of just immense destruction. But then, right nearby, you'll find these quiet, deeply personal items, like a telephone or a pair of scissors recovered from an office. This contrast is so intentional. It's designed to constantly pull your focus back and forth from the giant geopolitical event to the individual human loss.
And this is where you really see how the museum moves beyond just showing you things. It uses this powerful, completely unfiltered testimony from people who were there to create just a profound emotional impact. I mean, reading an account like this one, you're not just learning a fact. You are being asked to feel the horror of that day. It's a strategy that is aimed squarely at your heart, not just your head. So all of this emotional strategy, it leads us to a really key concept for understanding this space. We're going to pivot a little bit here from what the museum shows you to why it shows it to you in that specific way. You have to think of the museum as a performative space. It's designed to do something to you, the visitor.
Yeah, a scholar named Amy Sodaro makes this really important distinction. Think of it this way. A traditional museum acts as a witness. It just sort of passively holds the evidence and artifacts. But the 9/11 Museum, it's a museum about the act of witnessing. It uses all these theatrical techniques, soundscapes, those personal stories, the architecture itself to try and recreate the event. And in doing so, it turns you, the visitor, into a witness.
And again, this wasn't an accident. This was the explicit goal. The lead exhibition designer, Tom Hens, he said it himself. The aim is to create empathy through the act of witnessing. The hope, really, is that by going through this very carefully curated trauma, we all come away with a deeper moral understanding, a deeper connection to our shared humanity.
But an emotional experience that powerful is bound to have consequences. So for our final section, we really need to look at this from a critical perspective. We have to ask, what are the political implications of telling the story of 9/11 in this specific, highly emotional way?
You'll see this quote from the poet Virgil emblazoned on a central wall in the museum. "No day shall erase you from the memory of time." It's pretty much become the museum's unofficial motto. You'll even see it on stuff in the gift shop. And it's meant to be this powerful, definitive statement about eternal remembrance. But a statement that strong, it forces a critical question, doesn't it? Okay, so whose memory are we talking about? And for what purpose? What work is this specific memory being asked to do in the world today? This is the moment where the museum's design choices become deeply, deeply political.
And that brings us to the core critiques you hear about the museum. So one of the main arguments is that it presents 9/11 as this sudden rupture, like an event that just happened out of the blue, with no before. It tends to minimize the historical context of what led to the attacks, and it also largely avoids the consequences, like the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The fear is that by immersing you in such a powerful emotional experience, it can actually shut down critical thinking. That intense feeling can end up reinforcing a really simple, nationalistic us versus them story. And that relentless focus on trauma, well, it can be used to justify the American policies that came next, in the war on terror. So from this point of view, the museum's choice to seem apolitical is, in itself, a profoundly political act.
And so all of this leaves us with a final and pretty difficult question. Look, the 9/11 Memorial Museum is an undeniably powerful, moving space. There's no question about that. But by building a permanent story inside a national wound, and by designing an experience that asks us to relive that trauma over and over again, does it ultimately help that wound to heal? Or does it work to keep it permanently open, always raw, maybe even ready to be used?